again, this appears to be, this scenario has played itself out several times. Things are too big to fail. Boy, if we allow this bank to fail, it's going to be a not just national, worldwide. And you know, we think of now in the last, what, 20, 25 years, we've had a worldwide economy. Not so much. Oh no, the same statements were used back in the 40s to bail out banks. Another interesting thing about this, you remember the Panama Canal?
Mm-hmm.
Remember our President Jimmy Carter, it was our property basically, gave it back to Panama. You know why he gave it back? I didn't know this. It's because our banks had loaned Panama money. And of course, when banks loan money, they don't have a big stack of cash that they reach into and grab. They create the new money.
Mm-hmm.
In some cases, they borrow it from the Federal Reserve, which creates the money, and then they loan it at a different interest rate. But they created the money, loaned them billions of dollars, and so they've got a huge asset, and they get an income stream, the banks, every month on these huge loans coming in. They're making money. Didn't cost them anything to create it, but they're making money. Well, Panama decided to default on the loans. So the bankers got together with their bedfellows, the government. Carter gave the Panama Canal back to Panama specifically because then the Panamanians had an income-producing property, and they'd be able to restore their interest payments to our banks. So there you go. The banks get saved again. And to do it, we give up something that was ours, that we worked and sweat and sent people over and created down there. It's nasty.
That's how you steal wealth, and that's
exactly how you.
That's how the banks have done for generations, thousands of years. They'll create a scenario. They don't mind being on both sides.
Of course. Making
a profit on both sides of the war, because it doesn't matter who wins, if they fail or not in their overall agenda, they're still making money on both sides. And anyway, I don't want to get off on that about paying debts off and all that, but it's how they steal the wealth from the people. Because you take a fiction like the dollars that we have, it's not based on substance, it's based on belief. It's based on just faith that it's going to work. Like a lot of Christians believe, and that faith is all that you need, but they never follow through with anything else. Okay, so this faith that we have in there is going to work until it can't be paid, or until they draw, one way or another, they draw the money in such a way that somebody's going to be holding to pay the note, the bank note. And they do this on purpose. They call it an economic cycle. There's no cycle. It's intended to destroy and to steal wealth from the people. So we just created a bank, a new money system.
Well, let me interject just real quick. It's not only stealing money, it's stealing their labor.
It's labor.
Because if a guy so-called borrows $100 from the bank and he makes $100, how's he going to pay the interest on that? He's got to work a little more, right?
Well, not only work a little bit more, but somebody's going to have to come up with that money. That money didn't exist.
It doesn't. That's exactly right.
And so,
well, let's put it this way. Look at this example. Let's say a guy makes $100 a month and he borrows $100 from the bank, and his interest payment is $5 a month to the bank. Figures they're not based on anything. Well, the bank says, okay, you don't have that money, that extra $5 to pay. So come wax our floors once a month, and we'll pay you $5, and that'll go towards your interest payment. See what I'm saying? Mm. His labor is used to pay interest. Of course, in the Bible, interest is equated to murder.
Yeah, it's like a serpent's sting. Yeah. See, what they do is, so they'll inflate the money, or they'll deflate the money, the money supply, the value. So what they do is, there was okay, the banks have and now it's done on computers. I mean, before just ledgers, but it's the same principle. So the bank is over here. And so you and I go and we actually have $1 of silver or gold. And we deposit that into the bank. Once we deposit that into the bank, it becomes their asset. We actually gave it to them. It's not our money anymore, but I've digressed again. So we deposit that money into the bank and they're holding that money. So in return, they give us script like Federal Reserve notes, fraud notes is what I call them. And so these fraud notes, everybody believes them to be valuable because you can, or at least once could redeem them for that silver and gold.
Right.
Now it's no longer. That's a whole nother lot of tangents on that one. So anyway, the long story of it is, so everybody's trading in these notes, and the bankers came to realize that they could not, or in other words, that the people would not all at once come and get their gold and silver redeemable, so that they would just extend their money supply artificially out there. And it worked and developed to what we have now. Essentially, it's a system where you get these notes that aren't worth anything. It's a debt obligation. And those notes are used to create more notes. And before, unless they've changed something, before this bailout and all that, they used to have a 90% of the money that they can lend out and 10% they had to have in reserves. Well, with the bailout, from my understanding, is that they don't have to have any reserves anymore. So it can go on in infinity.
Really?
Yeah, but essentially what they do is just say that 90% was still there, just for grins, okay? And so you put $100 in, I put $100 in. Each one of those $100, they can loan out $90, and then that money gets back redeposited back in the bank, and they loan 90% on that, and so on and so on, and that way your money's 10 times inflated.
It's pyramided. It's
pyramid.
expanded.
Well, that's the good side of things.
That's the good side.
That's the good side of things. And there's a lot of other tangents I can get off on this, but essentially on the other side of things is you have no money, but you want, aside from what's going on right now, you want to start a business. You need $80,000 to have some retail space, and you need another couple $100,000 for merchandise. And the bank said, no, you need $1 million, whatever. So they loan you the $1 million based on your business plan, based on one thing or another, whatnot. And they could go, and usually what they do is they want some kind of collateral. And so you go pledge that collateral. Remember, you and I first gave the bank, and everybody else gave the bank their $100, and they lent it out and made the money grow that way. Well, the way it really works is you give up collateral, or even just say, for instance, you didn't give up the collateral, that you were like this one guy that had this stunning history of always paying back for one thing or another. I mean, they got signature loans. You and I, it might be for $1,000 or $5,000 or $10,000 or one thing or another, but you just signed. Your signature creates the promise to pay. It's the loan that they give to you to loan you the money. They create the money on a ledger. So say, for instance, you didn't have the cash or capital, one thing or another, but you had a house, or you had another business, or one thing or another. And so that becomes collateral for the banks to come and seize in case you don't pay. But just like these landlords that have all these properties but no tenants, and they're having to pay that out of there, they're going to come and confiscate whatever collateral they have whenever they choose to. That's stealing the wealth out of from the people, out of creating out of nothing, because they didn't have the money in the bank. That money didn't come from the money that you and I gave, and the thousands of other people that put their $100 in. No, that money was created out of the thin air. They just said, click, click, click on their computer, and it went into a ledger that you had that much value or that much dollars.
Well, specifically
in your account.
Specifically, I understand that they're not so much lending money as they are money changers. In other words, that promissory note, I want to borrow $100,000, and I sign a note that says, I promise to pay you $100,000 plus interest. That gets converted into money on their books. So now they have an account that contains $100,000
Out of nothing.
out of nothing.
And then they can loan on that money.
And then I'm going to loan you $100,000, just ledger entry, so that the books balance $100,000. Again, they don't have a big stack of cash or gold that they're going to go into and say, here, and for the privilege of tying up my money for a number of years, I need some sort of a fee or some sort of an interest. No, it's created new money. So what is the interest rate on nothing? Okay?